wrong when your CEO replaces the solid oak conference table with meditation cushions and tells you it's for authentic energy alignment. I'm Wallace Brenner, 46 years old, and I've been running operations at Apex Industrial Logistics for 18 years. Before that, I spent 10 years in the Army Corps of Engineers handling supply chains in places where a single mistake could get people killed. I came out at 28, dove straight into civilian logistics, and built this company's entire operational backbone from scratch. I sat across from Sophia Manning in her glass-walled transparency pod that smelled like eucalyptus and overpriced coffee. She was 27 years old, wearing a blazer made from recycled materials, and had that smile they teach you at business school, the one that says I'm about to ruin your day but make it sound like an opportunity. My uncle Preston, who's 54 and built this company from a single truck and a dream, would have laughed her straight out of the building. But Preston retired last year, handing control to the board with one simple instruction: don't mess with Wallace's operation. He's the engine. You just handle the paperwork. The warning signs had been building for months. First, Sophia replaced the break room coffee machine with a kombucha station. Then she converted the warehouse supervisor's office into a mindfulness space complete with aromatherapy diffusers. Last week, she hired 3 transformation consultants who'd never loaded a pallet but had strong opinions about disrupting traditional logistics paradigms. I'd tried to warn Preston about what was coming, called him at the lake house, told him his niece was making changes that could destabilize our entire operation. But Preston was 18 months into retirement and didn't want to hear about corporate politics. Wallace, he'd said, you've been running that place since you were 28. Whatever Sophia throws at you, you can handle it. What Preston didn't understand was that I wasn't just handling day-to-day operations anymore. I was trying to translate between 2 completely different languages: the language of moving freight efficiently and the language of ecosystem optimization. When Sophia announced the mandatory energy alignment assessment for all department heads, I knew the axe was coming. The assessment consisted of sitting in a circle on those purple meditation cushions, sharing our authentic leadership journey, and explaining how our management style contributed to collaborative synergy. I lasted about 15 minutes before excusing myself to deal with a critical inventory discrepancy, which was actually just me hiding in the loading dock, smoking a cigarette, and wondering how the hell we'd gotten here. The final straw came during last Tuesday's quarterly review. Sophia had replaced our operational dashboard, the one that showed truck locations, warehouse capacity, and delivery schedules, with something called a holistic performance mandala. Instead of seeing that truck 447 was running 2 hours behind schedule because of a breakdown outside Memphis, we got to contemplate color-coded circles representing our collective organizational chakras. Wallace, Sophia said, pressing her palms together like she was about to lead a prayer circle. We've been conducting a comprehensive assessment of our organizational energy flow. And honestly, your leadership paradigm feels very legacy-focused. It doesn't sync with our pivot toward collaborative ecosystem transformation. I stared at her. The watch on my wrist ticked past 1:45 p.m. In my head, I could hear the familiar hum of our mainframe servers processing the daily authentication sequence. Every day at 2:15 p.m. sharp, the system required my biometric verification to synchronize inventory across all 340 warehouses, my thumbprint, my access codes. My 18 years of institutional knowledge packed into security protocols that treated me like the single point of failure I'd intentionally designed myself to be. It wasn't an accident that I'd built the system that way. When you've seen supply chains collapse because too many people had access to critical systems, you learn to control the choke points. In Afghanistan, I'd watched a forward operating base run out of ammunition because some desk jockey in Kandahar had streamlined the requisition process. 3 soldiers died because efficiency experts thought they knew better than the people actually running the operation. You're firing me because of my leadership paradigm, I said. It's not termination, she corrected, her voice dripping with that artificial sweetness they perfect at Wharton. It's realignment. We're realigning you to discover opportunities that match your operational frequency. Your methodology just doesn't harmonize with the future of supply chain innovation. I checked my watch again. 1:47 p.m. The system was humming along perfectly. 340 warehouses synchronized, 890 trucks following optimized routes, $72 million in credit lines flowing smoothly through our accounts. All of it held together by legacy code I'd written, backup protocols only I understood, and authentication sequences that required my personal biometric signature every 24 hours. The authentication wasn't just a security measure, it was my insurance policy. Every critical function in our network, from inventory management to truck routing to financial reporting, funneled through a central verification system that had been grandfathered in from our older mainframe architecture. The IT consultants Sophia had hired kept talking about modernizing our data infrastructure and migrating to cloud-native solutions, but they had no idea they were looking at a digital nervous system that I'd spent 18 years building, one careful protocol at a time. My methodology, I repeated, tasting the words like they were something I'd scraped off my boot. You mean the methodology that's moved $2.8 billion in freight over the past 5 years without a single major incident? Exactly. We need authentic leadership aligned with our intentional disruption strategy. The transformation consultants have identified some incredible opportunities for algorithmic optimization that your current approach might resist. I looked around her pod, where my ergonomic office chair used to sit. She'd installed a yoga ball. Where operational dashboards once displayed real-time freight data, she'd mounted inspirational quotes about embracing change and disrupting legacy thinking. The woman had turned a command center into a wellness retreat. "All right, Sophia," I said, standing up slowly. "You want transformation? You got it." I didn't yell. I didn't slam anything. I didn't throw her organic succulents through the glass wall, even though the urge was stronger than my morning coffee craving. I just reached into my pocket, pulled out my security badge, the one with clearance levels higher than hers, and slid it across her recycled bamboo desk. "You've got 28 minutes, I said, keeping my voice as flat as pavement. Sophia blinked, confused. 28 minutes for what? To clear out your transformation consultants and call Preston. Take your time, Wallace. We want this transition to be holistic and authentic. 8 minutes before the ghost in the machine realizes I'm gone, I said, turning toward the door. "You see, Sophia, that legacy system you hate so much? It's held together by 20-year-old mainframe code, 3 backup servers in Kansas City, and my personal biometric authentication. If I don't authorize the 2:15 p.m. sync, the system assumes hostile takeover." Her smile faltered for the first time since I'd walked into her pod. "You're bluffing." The IT consultants assured me everything is cloud native now. The IT consultants. I almost grinned. "You mean the 3 guys you hired because they had blockchain experience and promised to revolutionize our data architecture? Good luck with that." The thing about legacy systems is that they're not just software. They're archaeological layers of 18 years worth of patches, workarounds, and institutional knowledge. Every time we'd upgraded something over the years, I'd built bridges between the new technology and the old mainframe that still processed our core transactions. Those bridges weren't documented anywhere except in my head. When Sophia's consultants had done their comprehensive systems audit last month, they'd produced a beautiful PowerPoint presentation about technical debt and modernization opportunities. What they'd missed was that our technical debt was actually technical architecture. Every seemingly outdated process served a purpose. Every redundant backup system had prevented a disaster at least once. I walked out, past the open plan office full of 20-somethings staring at laptops, past the meditation corner where the break room used to be, and I felt something cold and mechanical settling in my chest. Not anger, just the calm precision of a demolition expert watching the timer count down. The elevator ride to the lobby took 45 seconds. Enough time to think about 18 years of missed family dinners, canceled fishing trips with Preston, and nights spent sleeping in the Milwaukee warehouse because a blizzard knocked out power and the backup generators needed manual restart. I'd given this company everything. My knees still ache when it rains because I spent the winter of 2019 walking concrete floors to manually verify inventory when the automated systems crashed during an ice storm. And for what? To be told my operational frequency was misaligned by someone whose hardest decision was choosing between oat milk and almond milk for her morning latte. The lobby was all marble and glass, polished to corporate perfection. I walked past the security desk where Oscar Hartwell was working on his crossword puzzle. Oscar was ex-Marine, understood the value of reliable systems and clear chains of command. "Leaving early, Mr. Wallace?" Oscar asked, looking up from his puzzle. "Permanent vacation, Oscar," I said, dropping my company credit card on his desk. "Sophia's idea. Apparently I'm bad for the ecosystem," Oscar snorted. "That girl wouldn't know logistics if it ran her over with a freight train. You take care of yourself. This place is going to fall apart without you." "That's the plan," I muttered, pushing through the revolving doors. The moment I hit the sidewalk, my phone buzzed with that familiar pattern, short, long. The panic sequence I'd programmed years ago for system alerts. My watch read 2:16 p.m. Alert, system sync authorization missing. Warehouse 117, warehouse 118, warehouse 119. The list scrolled down my screen like credits at the end of a disaster movie. I lit a cigarette. Yeah, I know, bad habit. But when you've inhaled diesel fumes for 18 years, tobacco feels like fresh air, and looked up at that glass tower. Up there on the 35th floor, reality was starting to bite. The real-time dashboard Sophia had reluctantly kept running alongside her holistic mandala was flashing red. Not warning red, Nuclear meltdown red. My phone buzzed again. The operations group chat, a chat I'd been removed from 10 minutes ago, but the system hadn't updated permissions yet. Carmen, why is the Denver hub showing zero inventory? Jake, is this a system glitch? The dashboard shows negative stock levels. Sophia, someone call Wallace. We need his override codes immediately. Override codes, like they were written on a sticky note somewhere. The override wasn't a password you could reset or a token you could regenerate. It was 18 years of knowing that the scanner in Bay 7 of the Houston facility reads double on Mondays because of interference from the cell tower next door, and you manually adjust by 8%. It was knowing that the emergency protocol wasn't a button you clicked, but a command sequence I'd written in 2018 called DEFCON 1EX that required specific environmental conditions to execute safely. They hadn't just fired an employee, they'd performed surgery on a patient while the patient was still awake. I walked to my truck, a Ford F-150 that had survived more road salt than a pretzel factory, and threw my bag in the passenger seat. My phone was buzzing so hard it was sliding across the console like an angry wasp. Incoming call. Sophia Manning, CEO. I let it ring. Let them sweat. Let them feel the weight of 890 trucks sitting on highways with nowhere to go. Here's what Sophia didn't understand about legacy systems. They're not just software running on servers, they're living organisms with their own ecosystem of dependencies, workarounds, and institutional knowledge. Cut the wrong nerve, and the whole body goes into shock. While I was driving toward the interstate, humming along to classic rock, Apex Industrial Logistics was having a massive stroke. The authentication failure triggered what I'd designed as the nuclear option. Without my biometric signature, the system defaulted to maximum security protocol. Every transaction required manual verification. Every truck movement needed individual authorization. Every warehouse door needed personal approval from a supervisor who no longer existed in the system. At 2:25 p.m., a sales rep in Detroit tried to process an order for 500 units of industrial steel tubing. He typed in the SKU, hit enter, and watched his screen freeze. Error, inventory status unknown. Authorization required. That's impossible. He probably shouted, spilling his energy drink across his desk. I physically counted that inventory this morning. He checked the warehouse management system. Status, quarantine pending security review. He'd called a warehouse directly. The phone would ring, but the local supervisor couldn't access the system to verify anything. Every terminal was locked behind biometric authentication that no longer recognized any authorized users. Multiply that by 340 warehouses. Every single item suddenly trapped in digital purgatory. But the inventory lockdown was just the beginning. The real problem was the money. We operated on a $72 million revolving credit line with First National Business Credit. The lenders had automated monitoring software that pinged our inventory levels every hour to ensure we maintained sufficient collateral to cover our loans. If our assets dropped below the threshold percentage, the credit froze automatically. At 2:30 p.m., according to every computer system that mattered, Apex Industrial Logistics owned absolutely nothing except some leased office furniture and a collection of meditation cushions. The credit freeze triggered the next level of chaos. Our fuel cards stopped working. Dryers pulling into truck stops from Kansas City to Nashville suddenly found themselves stranded with empty tanks and credit cards that returned account suspended messages. But wait, there's more. The automated dispatch system, deprived of inventory data and unable to verify delivery destinations, defaulted to its emergency protocol. Return all vehicles to base immediately. 890 trucks halfway to their destinations across 14 states received simultaneous GPS updates instructing them to pull U-turns and head back to the nearest Apex facility. Highway traffic reports started lighting up, massive congestion building on all major freight corridors. Commercial vehicles performing synchronized reversals like some kind of industrial ballet choreographed by a computer having a nervous breakdown. My phone went silent for exactly 3 minutes. Then it started ringing again. Different number this time. Carmen Valdez. My former systems administrator, the one Sophia had fired last month for resisting collaborative workflow optimization. Carmen had a degree from MIT and could debug assembly code in her sleep, but she'd committed the unforgivable sin of questioning whether we really needed a mindfulness app integrated into our inventory management system. Wallace Carmen's voice was tight with what sounded like professional vindication mixed with genuine concern. Are you seeing the ops dashboard right now? I'm not seeing anything, Carmen. I got realigned about an hour ago. They fired you today, right before the daily sync. Apparently my energy frequency was misaligned with their ecosystem transformation. Carmen let out a laugh that sounded like glass breaking. Wallace, they are completely screwed. I'm monitoring their network from the coffee shop across the street. Every single subsystem is throwing critical errors. The financial reporting module just crashed. The customer service portal is showing that every shipment scheduled for the next 6 months has been canceled. How bad is it? Remember when the ice storm hit in 2019 and we had to rebuild the entire routing system from scratch? This makes that look like a software update. They're not just offline, Wallace, they're in digital quicksand. Every attempt to restore service is triggering more failures. I could picture the scene unfolding on the 35th floor. Sophia's transparency pod would be packed with executives, consultants, and probably a few lawyers by now. The transformation experts she'd hired would be frantically typing on keyboards, trying to debug a system they'd never bothered to understand. What are they saying in the emergency channels? I asked. Oh, you're still getting those notifications. Hold on, let me read you the latest. I could hear keyboard clicks through the phone. Okay, here we go. Brian Walsh, chairman of the board. Someone find Wallace immediately. Authorization for emergency override. Sophia, the consultants say they can rebuild the authentication system from scratch. Random IT guy. Ma'am, that would take approximately 6 to 8 months, assuming we had the original system documentation. Another voice. Do we have the original system documentation? Long pause. Same IT guy. No ma'am. That appears to be stored in Mr. Brenner's personal files. I was turning off the highway now, heading toward the county road that led to Preston's lake house. The sun was getting lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the cornfields. Peaceful, quiet. The kind of environment where a person could really appreciate the artistic beauty of systematic corporate destruction. Carmen, I said, I'm going to be unreachable for the next few hours, but keep monitoring. Document everything. Screenshots, error logs, the whole cascading failure sequence. You want this for evidence? I want this for leverage. Preston's lake house was 90 minutes outside the city, surrounded by pine trees and the kind of silence that reminds you what peace sounds like. He was on the porch cleaning fishing gear when I pulled up, looking like a bear that had decided to embrace retirement gracefully. You're supposed to be in the quarterly review meeting, he said, looking up from his tackle box. Got realigned, I said, leaning against the porch railing. Apparently my operational frequency doesn't sync with ecosystem transformation. Preston's hand stopped moving. He looked at me, then at his fishing rod, then back at me. Your operational frequency, too legacy-focused, blocking collaborative innovation. Preston slowly set down his gear. He didn't explode. Preston never exploded, he imploded, creating a vacuum that sucked all the oxygen from the immediate area. Sophia fired you on a Tuesday, before the quarterly sync, realigned me, gave me 28 minutes to transition holistically. Preston closed his eyes and did the math instantly. He knew the system better than anyone except me. Knew about the credit monitoring, knew about the authentication protocols, knew about the cascade failures built into every critical process. The lenders, he said quietly, frozen as of about 45 minutes ago. The trucks, 890 vehicles getting creative with their GPS routing about now. Preston let out a long, slow breath that seemed to carry 25 years of building something from nothing. He reached for a bottle of bourbon sitting on the table and poured 2 glasses, no ice. I built that company with blood and missed birthdays, he said finally. Missed your high school graduation to secure the Texas distribution contract. Missed mom's funeral to fix the routing system when that ice storm hit in 2020. He took a sip of bourbon and stared out at the lake. A pair of hawks circled overhead, probably wondering what all the human drama was about. And she fired the chief architect because she didn't like the user interface. He pulled out his satellite phone, the only communication device he trusted for serious business. Who you calling? I asked. Chairman of the board, Preston said, punching numbers with military precision. Then the bank, then probably my lawyer. The phone rang twice before someone answered. When they did, Preston's voice shifted into that tone I remembered from childhood, the one that meant someone had broken something expensive and irreplaceable. Brian, it's Preston Brenner. Listen carefully. My niece just severed the central nervous system of my company. No, don't put me on hold. Don't transfer me to Sophia. She doesn't understand what's happening, and neither do you. He paused, listening to what sounded like frantic explanations from the other end. Fix it? Brian, I can't fix it. You can't fix it. The transformation consultants you're so proud of can't fix it. There's exactly one person on this planet who can restore function, and he's currently sitting on my porch drinking my bourbon. Preston hung up and looked at me with a grim smile playing around the edges of his mouth. Emergency board meeting in 15 minutes. Conference call. We? You think I'm doing this without my chief operating officer? You're the asset now, Wallace. Right now, you're the most valuable piece on their entire board. The satellite phone rang with that mechanical shrillness that cuts through everything. Preston answered on the second ring. Speak. He listened for a moment, his face carved from granite, then he looked at me and winked. No, Sophia isn't invited to this call. Put her in the meditation corner or wherever you keep the consultants. We're talking about adults. Now he put the phone on speaker. Static crackled through the cabin. Wallace, you there? It was Brian Walsh, chairman of the board. His voice sounded like he'd been gargling gravel in panic for the past hour. I'm here, Brian. Just enjoying the authentic energy out here by the lake. We need to resolve this situation immediately. The lenders are threatening to call in the loans. We're hemorrhaging cash by the minute. Stock price is in free fall. The media is asking questions about our operational capacity. Sounds stressful, Brian, but I don't work for Apex anymore. I was realigned. Remember, my paradigm didn't harmonize with the future. Yes, we know. Complete misunderstanding. Sophia acted without proper consultation. Sophia acted like someone handed a hand grenade to a toddler. Preston cut in. Now let's discuss terms. You want the system operational. You need Wallace. He's the only one with root access and institutional knowledge. Your consultants are trying to perform brain surgery with a crowbar. Silence from the boardroom. In the background, I could hear what sounded like frantic typing and muffled arguments. What do you want, Wallace? Brian asked finally. I looked at Preston. He nodded slowly like a general giving permission to commence bombardment. First, I said, I don't come back as an employee. I come back as Executive Vice President of Operations. Salary quadruples, 18-month contract paid in full upfront. Non-negotiable. That's a significant increase. The trucks are stopped, Brian. The warehouses are sealed. Do you want to negotiate salary, or do you want freight moving again? Done. Agreed. What's second? Complete operational autonomy. No ecosystem assessments, no transformation consultants, no collaborative optimization workshops run by people who've never loaded a pallet. I hire my team back immediately. Carmen, Jake. Everyone Sophia fired with 40% raises and written apologies. That's highly irregular, Brian. I interrupted. Your irregularity policies are comprehensive, I'm sure. But right now, your entire supply chain is sitting in digital purgatory. You want policy discussions or operational restoration? Long pause. More arguments in the background. Fine, agreed. What's third? Sophia gets removed from any operational oversight permanently. She can keep her title, but she's banned from the operations floor, system access, and any meetings related to supply chain management. She can focus on strategic vision development from her transparency pod, the silent stretched. She's family. Wallace? She's a liability, Preston growled into the phone. Do it, Brian, or I'll sell my 45% controlling stake tomorrow morning and crater your stock price. Okay. We'll restructure her role immediately. 2 hours later, I walked into the Apex lobby like I owned the place, which technically I kind of did now. The building was lit up like a disaster movie, every floor blazing with emergency sessions and expensive panic. Oscar was still at the security desk, surrounded by executives who looked like they'd been chewing glass. When he saw me, he actually saluted. Welcome back, sir. Been quite an evening. I took the elevator to the 35th floor. Sophia's pod was packed with the entire leadership team, legal department, and huddled in the corner on her meditation cushion, Sophia herself. She looked like someone had put her through an industrial washing machine. When I walked in, the room went dead silent. Contracts are signed, Brian said, holding out papers like a peace offering. Wire transfer confirmed. Please, Wallace, make it stop. I walked to my old workstation, kicked aside the exercise ball someone had put there, and sat down at my terminal. Username, W. Brenner, OP's admin password. 18 years of muscle memory, biometric scan, confirmed. The screen shifted from angry red to peaceful green in exactly 30 seconds. Phone started ringing. The sound of a company coming back to life. System is live. Trucks will receive updated routing in 60 seconds. Lenders will see restored collateral within 3 minutes. I looked directly at Sophia, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. My team starts at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I want the meditation corner converted back to a break room with coffee that contains actual caffeine. Carmen gets her old office back, and I want every transformation consultant off the premises by noon. Then I walked to the elevator, drove to an all-night diner, and ordered the best steak of my life. You know what this whole thing taught me? Sometimes the most dangerous person in any organization isn't the one making the big speeches or writing the mission statements. It's the quiet guy who actually knows how everything works. Every company has someone like me, the person who's been there long enough to understand not just what the systems do, but why they were built that way in the first place. We're the ones who remember which shortcuts will save you time and which ones will destroy everything you've worked for. Here's my advice. When you meet that person in your workplace, treat them with respect, because the day you decide their experience doesn't matter, that's the day you find out exactly how much power quiet competence really has.